I won't use the stool because I don't think I need it. Welcome to all of you on behalf of Jews from across Syracuse and further, as I understand, including the official kind of endorsement of Temple Concord and Congregation Beth Shalom Shever Sas. We welcome you all to this somber moment. Today is the 9th day of the Jewish month of Av, Tisha B'Av, which marks the saddest day on the Jewish calendar. Jews around the world use this day to remember the horrible things that have happened to us across the millennia. Some believe that they all started on this day. The destruction of the first and second temples, the beginnings of the expulsions from England and Spain, the Holocaust itself, and so many more, all are remembered on this day. Many Jews observe a total fast from sundown to sundown, and so we recognize those who are unable to be here physically because of their traditions. But fasting, as the prophet Isaiah reminds us, is not sufficient. As Jews, we are called to wrestle with injustice in the world, even and especially wrestling with God. After all, Israel means God wrestler, to bring about the repair and adornment of the world. As Jews, on this day, we do not merely mourn, but we ask why these things happen and what we must do differently. The why, the sages tell us, is in part because of sinat kinam, hatred without reason between us. Not just of us, but between us. And so we are taught that we must exercise ahavat kinam, love without reason. We must not stand by idly and wait, but we must reach out and act strongly and lovingly to repair the injuries of this world. We come together as Jews with great differences between us, but who also share a passion for a just and peaceful world. For every 2 Jews, we are told, there are 3 opinions, but we share the urge for justice and love. On this day, we call to heart, mind, and body those multitudes of refugees who lay caged like animals on our southern border. Those children who are ripped away from their parents. Those parents ripped from their children. A terrifying echo of our own dark history. We call upon our leaders, as Jeremiah did in Lamentations, to renounce their deception that proclaims this to be a good thing, and instead to name it for what it is, an atrocity. Please join us now as we sing, pray, and pronounce what we know to be true, that we are each created in the divine image, and that an injury against any person is an injury against all humanity. Stand with us against the senseless hatred that attempts to divide us, and instead exercise the forceful love that will bring us, all of us, together. Greetings. My name is Andy Major, and I'll be leading a responsive reading. So those of you who have the handouts, please look around if there's folks near you who don't have them to read over your shoulders. It's called Woe to the Heart That Is Not Broken by Arya Cohen. So we start, so I'll start here. Woe to the heart that is not broken, and to the eyes that do not cry. Woe to the ears that do not hear, and to the mouths that do not scream. Now together.
The world is still standing.
Woe to us that closed our hearts. We have become uncircumcised of heart and mouth. For lo, if we have not cried out, we are in agreement. We have become entrapped in the counsel of evil.
And in truth, it is amazing that the world is still standing after so many cries of help.
Woe to the government that governs in this manner, and to the border patrol that behaves like stormtroopers. And where are we, the messengers of righteousness? A soft murmuring sound rather than the blast of a trumpet.
It's amazing that the world is still standing after so many cries like these.
For these crimes and venalities were not committed far away. O God, in our name they do these disgraceful things. For these actions are very close to us, and our mouths are silent, and our hearts are asleep, and still we are not outraged.
And in truth, it is amazing that the world is still standing after so many cries for help such as these.
On the day that we cried out and no one answered us, we said, "It shall not be thus in our places." When the time comes, we promised, we will rise up at the head of the people. And yet here is the day, and where is our reaction? Where is our outcry? We mumble, "God, have mercy," and we just say another prayer.
And in truth, it is amazing that the world is still standing after so many cries for help such as these.
Is this the fast that I would choose, a day in which people hunger for bread? Is this not the fast I would choose, a day on which we rise to righteousness, a day of opening the fetters of wickedness, a day of sending the oppressed free, a day of recognizing the humanity of people? Thus we will redeem our places, and the place blessed be the one. For the thing is very close to us. It is in our mouths and in our hearts to do it. So, before I introduce our next speaker, and actually there's that, I want to say that many people here are folks that I and others have stood here in front of ICE, down the street in front of our representative's office, at the federal building, and many other places who have spoken out, who have not been silent. So thank you to all those who have spoken out in whatever way you can. And I think this is a call for us that we need to continue to speak out and find ways to do so more powerfully and more effectively than we have so far.
Thank you, Andy. So before we go to the next speaker, I just want to read a quote that's on a sign over here already from Anne Frank in 1943. Anne Frank wrote, "Terrible things are happening outside. Poor, helpless people are being dragged out of their homes. Families are torn apart. Men, women, and children are separated. Children come home from school to find that their parents have disappeared." And if that isn't today, I don't know what is. Next, we'd like to invite a survivor of the Shoah, of the Holocaust, Irene Stern, to come up and share a few memories of that time.
I'm going to step behind you again.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Yes. My name is Irene Stern. I'm Jewish. I'm Jewish and I'm a child survivor of the Holocaust. I was born in France near the Swiss borders the days the German army boats of marginal line and marched into France. My father was in a French detention camp and I have never met him. Most of my extended family had already been sent to concentration camps and exterminated. My mother had Swiss citizenship, so for the marriage, and late my sisters are Swiss citizens as well. Okay. Okay. I was told I have to eat it. I like to eat better stuff than that. When the French police, so it made us Swiss citizens as well, my sister and I. When the French police rounded up the Jews in our courtyard and packed them into trucks to be driven to concentration camps, the Swiss embassy protected us by putting a poster on our door, identifying us as Swiss citizens of Jewish extractions, not quite real as Swiss. We were left alone, truly alone, since now the last of our family and friends were gone. The Germans did not allow us to leave France until I was 3 years old. Since the Nazis couldn't deport and kill us, they instead terrorized us. Some of my first memories are having 2 guns pointed at me, the screaming in our courtyard as the French police loads trucks with Jews, the sound of the marching German army. Food was sparse, and my mother breastfed me until we were able to leave France. After 3 years we were given an exit visa. We were told that the Swiss embassy could no longer protect us, but that there was a train for Switzerland that would be leaving from Paris in a few days. My mother packed her passport and the few items, including 15 francs allowed by the Nazis to take with her. That would be about $30 for a family of 3. The train had a closed wagon filled with women and children. There was no food, and the trip took 3 days. My mother breastfed me and some other children as long as she had any milk. Nobody knew if we were heading to Switzerland or to a concentration camp. Once we arrived in Switzerland, we were given a long speech of grudging welcome, a bowl of soup, and a train ticket to wherever we wanted to go in Switzerland. That was the amount of help the Swiss gave a wagon full of terrorized and traumatized mothers and children. There was no daycare available and no family members to babysit us while my mother worked. We spent some time in a Salvation Army center, then were separated and placed in foster care. In one day we lost our mother, each other, our home, our language, everything we were familiar with. After 3 years in foster care, my mother felt that we needed to be together and placed us in a children's home where we stayed for the next 6 years. I was told by teachers and caregivers not to tell anybody that I was Jewish because nobody would like me if they knew. I did not want to be in public places with my mother because she spoke High German and not Swiss German, and that made us outsiders. I wanted to be like everybody else, a real Swiss, but I was not. The real Swiss citizens regarded us as paper Swiss and Jews on top of it. When I read about the refugees who are coming to find safety in the United States and end up being terrorized, I keep seeing the trucks where the French police were packing the Jews to be killed. I see the little girl whom I met when we were adults. Her parents threw her out of one of the trucks so she would live. Separating families, steering children from their parents, incarcerating kids behind chain-linked fences is not so different from what the Germans did during the Holocaust. The traumas these families experience will not disappear. The traumas these families will experience will not disappear once they are united again. These children will continue to see the world as an unsafe and unpredictable place. If the family makes it into the United States, the fear continues. They might suddenly be deported, pulled from their home or their work. Once more, the family will be torn apart. Will these families and children ever be able to reach their potential? What and how much have we destroyed in them?
By allowing these horrors, we are not only traumatizing the immigrants, but we are destroying our own humanity, our empathy and decency. We already have turning into a people where mass shootings are almost normal and acceptable, where more and more fear of each other is the norm, where the other is seen as dangerous instead of somebody who will be part of our society and contribute and enrich it.
We're going to read now from Lamentations. Brent is going to be reading selections from the actual biblical book of Lamentations, which is customarily read for Tisha B'Av. The other responsive readings that I'll read are quotes from child refugees who are in the camps, and then your part is the part that's labeled attendees. I was going to apologize for the fact that I can't do this without crying, and then I decided I should be crying. Right. We should all be crying. It is Lamentations. So.
Hear, all you peoples, and behold my agony. My girls and my boys have gone into captivity.
They told me, you don't have any rights here, and you don't have any rights to stay with your son. I died at that moment. They ripped my heart out of me.
For me, it would have been better if I had dropped dead.
For me, the world ended at that point. How can a mother not have the right to be with her son?
I raised my grandchild since she was little. They didn't tell me why they were taking her.
They just told me they were going to separate her from me. My granddaughter calls me Mommy. And she told me by phone, Mommy, I want to be with you on Mother's Day. She just wants to be with me. The way they treat us, I cannot survive for long. The officers don't respect us for who we are because of our skin. We need the wind, and the water we are using is not good enough to shower or drink.
We are kept in a cage. It is very crowded. There is no room to move without stepping over the others.
We have to sleep on the cold concrete floor. The lights are on all the time.
My sisters keep asking me, when will Mommy come and get us? I don't know what to tell them.
I have not been told how long I have to stay here. I am frightened, scared, and sad.
I have a cold and cough. I have not seen a doctor or been given any medicine. It is cold at night when we sleep.
We have not been able to shower. The toilet is out in the open in the cage. There's no privacy.
There is no soap to wash our hands. We have not been given a toothbrush or toothpaste to brush our teeth.
They keep asking their mothers, where is bread and wine? As they languish like battle wounded, as their life runs out in their mother's bosoms.
When we arrived, they took the clothes my baby was wearing. We were not given any food or water or anything to drink.
We were put into a cage filled with loads of people, too many to count. There was nowhere to sit, there were so many people.
One of the other boys got into trouble, and he was taken to the freezer box as a punishment.
I'm in a room with dozens of other boys. Some are 3 or 4 years old. Right now there's a 12-year-old who cries a lot. Others try to comfort him.
One of the officers makes fun of those who cry. It is cold at night in our room. We spend the entire day in our room.
The tongue of the suckling cleaves to its palate for thirst. Little children beg for bread. None gives them a morsel.
The meals are the same every day, and there's not enough. I'm often hungry. One time the food was so bad it made me sick.
There are very young children who are here all by themselves. They do not have anyone to care for them.
Every night, the guards take us into the
Take a wet blanket.
water and the drugs taste awful, like it's from a dirty well.
Most of the children are all alone. One was only 2 years old. She had to sleep on the floor. It is concrete. It is very cold.
We are locked in a room for most of the day. The room has no windows.
I need comfort too. I am bigger than other children, but I am a child too.
Return us to you, O God, Lord Hashem, and let us return. Renew our days as of old. For if you were to reject us, bitterly rage against us, return us to you, O Lord, O God. Let us return. Renew our days like the dawn.
And now, just as we had a witness from the Holocaust, we have a witness from the southern border. Sheila?
Thank you for inviting me to speak. I want to begin by acknowledging that this event is taking place on stolen ancestral lands of the Onondaga Nation, the keepers of the Central Fire of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. And I am told that my ancestors came here on the Mayflower, so they were in the first wave of undocumented immigrants here. Last year, after hearing about these caravans of asylum seekers, I was able to go to Tijuana for myself to bear witness and assist in any way I could. I was able to join up with a group that had been there for a while, and I learned many things there. I learned that often people travel through Central America and Mexico to the U.S. border in large groups so that they can protect each other from the dangers from which they are fleeing. This is not unusual. Donald Trump made a big deal about it so he could convince us that this was a crisis. As you probably know, seeking asylum is a right granted under international law. People seeking asylum need to enter the country in order to make the request. The port of entry into the U.S. from Tijuana is the San Ysidro port. They have the capacity to process over 300 asylum applications per day, but they were only taking around 50 a day. Basically, they were turning a non-event into a crisis. The asylum seekers themselves created and maintained a waiting list so that people who waited in line in vain one day would get their turn the next day. The folks seeking asylum were very kind people. They took care of each other. They had really good group decision-making skills. They had decided to hold a protest, and we were invited to join in, that they had organized about the San Ysidro problems and other problems. They were being harassed by Mexican police too, and a few other things. So we did participate in protests with them, and after that we joined a group that decided to create an encampment across the street from the San Ysidro port under an overpass. And we were able to get some tents donated, and we camped there for the next several days. They also decided to hold a hunger strike, and we joined them in that. They were able to get help from international folks who helped them create press notices and actually brought it to the attention of national and international press, and were able to let a lot of people know what was going on. And while I was in the encampment, I got to know some of the people there. I'm not bilingual. I relied on some of my friends who speak Spanish well to do some translating for me, but everybody was very kind to me. And one of the folks we met was a mom from Honduras with a wonderful little girl who started calling me abuelita, grandma. And the mom had married an American in Honduras, and they hadn't really worried about getting any kind of citizenship papers. They were happy living on Honduras and planned to stay there. But then all hell broke loose there, and the father was actually killed. So the mom and this little girl with nothing that could help them get into the U.S. Were hoping to seek asylum. Parents were bringing their kids to just try and keep them safe, as we would certainly do if that were happening here. If it were not safe for our kids, we would do whatever we had to do to keep them safe. It's kind of ironic that some people are complaining about all the undocumented folks, but then when folks try and come through to seek asylum as provided under law, that would make it harder for them to do that too. We also got to talk with a young man, a boy really, he's about 7, and he told us how he, on the trip, he has seen people die. All these children have seen people die and not been able to do anything about it. And they're really traumatized. They're being as strong as they can be, but you know that they are traumatized. Their families still had faith that somehow they would get into the United States and be taken care of. Generally, people who applied for asylum would be then go live in the community and get working papers and hold a job while they're waiting for asylum. Little did these folks know what was going to come next with the camps and the putting people in cages. And I didn't get to see them after they came in, but I just can't imagine how it felt to encounter this when you weren't expecting it. It's also weighs on me that a lot of the problems in these Central American countries were created by the United States over the last many decades. I remember hearing Ronald Reagan, back when he was president, talk about how we were sending freedom fighters to Central America, and what we were doing was overthrowing democratic governments there, and to put our little puppet governments in place, and that's where everything started to go downhill from there. They were corrupt, and then the drug trade, which was certainly helped by America, gangs that started here, traveled there. A lot of this is our fault, and we really, if not just because we're all human beings, for many other reasons, we owe folks some safety and some help in getting them safe. I did want to mention 2 groups here that are doing something, and I appreciate everything you're doing. There are certainly some national groups going on, and Never Again Means Never Again is making some headway, because it hasn't done any good to try and talk to our representatives. We're going to have to do more action than that. There's the Syracuse Immigrant and Refugee Defense Network, which is on Facebook. You can find us on Facebook if you'd like to be part of that. There's also the Interfaith Sanctuary Committee. Brent is part of that, and we're trying to look out for people's rights, people who are waiting to come in, people who are here in cages, people who are not documented and are being hounded right now. So anybody wants to help with that, would certainly be welcome to help. Thank you very much.
We're going to sing Eli, Eli. You have the words in Hebrew and in transliteration and in English. We're going to sing it in Hebrew and then in English and then one last time in Hebrew. Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer le'olam, ha'chor v'hayam, rishu shel ha'mayim, barak ha'shamayim, tfilat ha'adam, ha'chor v'hayam, rishu shel ha'mayim, barak ha'shamayim, tfilat ha'adam. Oh yeah, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the praise of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, Barak Hashamayim Birat Ha'olam Ha'ol Ve'ayam Rishon She'hayim Barak Hashamayim Birat Ha'olam.
Now we have a reading for four voices, and in true disorganized fashion, we don't know exactly which four and in what order. But if you were already recruited to be one of the four voices, just come on up and we'll go through it. I should mention also, as we mentioned, all the organizations involved, there are 50 of these actions going on across the United States on this day, as a reflection of the Jewish response to this. So this is just one of more than 50. And then, of course, international. So I used to wonder, but now I know.
I used to wonder how the Egyptians felt when they saw infants condemned as enemies and threats. I used to wonder what Shifra and Pua thought when they heard the cries of Israelite mothers struggling to keep their families whole. I used to wonder what made Batya defy her ruler, reach into the void, and rescue a baby of a foreign people. I used to wonder how God could allow the Israelite families to be shattered and torn apart. I used to wonder, but I no longer do.
I am done wondering because now I know. Now I know what it feels like to watch as children are swept away from their families, and I won't apologize for crying, carried off by waves of paranoia and prejudice. Now I know what it feels like to be frozen in terror as you try to figure out how to live in a new reality, a reality where parents have their children ripped from their arms in your country's name, a reality where the most moral thing you can do is to reject the idea that powerful people must subjugate and terrorize.
You know why they're doing that?
Now I know what it feels like to stand on the banks of the abyss and to think, one life is a whole world, and though there are galaxies at risk, I will rejoice in every world that is saved. Now I know that God does not tear families apart. Humans do. Okay. Now I know that these evils come not from God, but instead from pharaohs, from men and women who stop up their ears and refuse to hear the pain of families who are crying out for assistance. I used to wonder, but now I know. I prayed to the God who protected a helpless Moses and who comforted Yocheved. I prayed to the God who emboldened Shifra and Pua and filled the heart of Batya with compassion and empathy. I pray that we will be the last generation to know what this impotence, fury, and heartache feel like. I pray that no other parents will ever have to experience the disbelief, hopelessness, and agony that comes from having their family torn apart by a heartless power. I pray that all of us will refuse to be silent as our government unleashes plagues of cruelty on vulnerable people. And I pray that when future generations tell stories about this moment, we will have done enough to be remembered as people who helped, who stood up, who refused to harden their hearts. May this be God's will. May this be our will. And let us say, Amen.
Leora? So right now we're passing out a black cloth with a pin in it, and we're going to instruct you on, it's a Jewish ritual that we'll instruct you on as we proceed. So take a bunch and, help pass them out.
Good to see you. Very glad I was here to hear you. Thank you. Oh, glad you have sleep. Thank you. Thank you.
I can't exactly.
only unhappily run short.
We know of at least 6 children that have died in U.S. custody at our southern border. How many more have been lost? We tear black ribbons as a traditional Jewish act of mourning, representing the fact that the world has been irrevocably changed through the death of another. As you tear these ribbons and pin them to you, we mention the 6 children whose names we know. From Guatemala, Carlos Gregorio Hernandez Vasquez, 16. Wilmer Josue Ramirez Vasquez, 2. Juan de Leon Gutierrez, 16. Felipe Alonso Gomez, 8. Jacqueline Kael Maquin, 7. And from El Salvador, Darlene Cristabel Cordova Valle, 10.
It's hard to tear. The cloth is purposely difficult to tear. Melissa.
The Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish, is the prayer said by Jews who are in mourning and those who are remembering the anniversaries of a loved one's death. The thoughts which precede this prayer were composed by the staff of Trua, who provided much of the source material for this vigil. All those who have died in the systemic targeting and khurban, destruction of people throughout history, of the destruction of ancient Israelites in Jerusalem, the murder of Jews in the Crusades, the expulsion of Jews and aggression against them from their many homelands, the unspeakable violence of the Holocaust against Jews and many other peoples, genocide in all its forms, and the death and destruction caused by ICE and this country's targeting of immigrant communities. We mourn everyone who has died from the baseless, senseless hatred that makes this khurban, this destruction, possible. I now invite you to join me in saying the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, Ba'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlech malchutei, B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei b'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'gala b'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'me'om maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh, V'tadar v'talel v'talal shmei v'bisha b'richu, Le'elam yimchol v'irchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata v'tamiram le'ala v'yiru. Amen. V'ei shlomo Rabbah mim shemaya, V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yiru. Amen. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן.
Is there an email list we can sign?
We'll get there. Yes, thanks. So the last part of our vigil here, and again I want to thank you all for coming, is the blowing of the shofar. The shofar is that ritual horn which calls Jews all over the world to action. Let it resound in our hearts and our souls tonight and from this day forward.
God of transformation, God of Teshuvah, may this call of the shofar be a bridge between Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. May this call reaffirm for us that just as we can be transformed in the season of turning, our world can be transformed. God of transformation, God of Teshuvah, may this call blast into our consciousness the possibility of redemption, of an end to the dehumanizing and targeting of immigrants, of a world in which all people find sanctuary, safety, and home. God who releases the bound, who strengthens the weary, may this call fortify all those impacted, suffering, and targeted by the cruelty of ICE, immigration policy, and the current administration. May this call fortify those who stand, organize, and resist in solidarity with immigrants. May this call fortify our reserves of courage and hope and lead us toward action.
Tekiah Gedolah.
Somebody just asked about an email list. We hadn't planned for this to start something new because there's much work already happening in this community to support immigrants and refugees, and it could use more support from those here who are not already involved. One easy way that people can help is financially. The Workers' Center of Central New York is a key founding part of the Syracuse Immigrant and Refugee Defense Network that Sheila referenced, and they do work with undocumented people throughout this community. And they've recently celebrated some important victories. Here in New York State, we passed the Green Light Bill, which will allow undocumented people to get driver's licenses, which is very important. And we also passed legislation granting greater rights to agricultural workers. So I'll pass around this basket. If you want to donate cash, that's great. If you want to write a check out to the Workers' Center of Central New York, or you can go to their website, workerscny.org. For folks who aren't connected in, go ahead and start passing them, to any of the work in the community, come up here and we can get your email addresses and send you information about a variety of things that are happening in the community. Thank you again so much for coming. We have much work to do, but it's very heartening to see so many people coming together to help us do it. Go in peace, my friends.